Health Ministry reminds Gambians of enforcement of Tobacco Control Act and regulations. National Assembly member for Banjul South summons Fisheries Minister over disgusting state of fishing in the Gambia. Elsewhere, Chadians protest in front of their country's embassy in Nigeria, calling for an end to military rule. These and more coming on The World Today. Hello and welcome to The World Today newscast with me, Juldenjai Suare. Now the news in detail. The Ministry of Health has reminded Gambians that the enforcement of Tobacco Control Act 2016 and Tobacco Control Regulation 2019 is still in force. In a press release, the ministry noted that with concern over the law compliance among the public, despite the numerous efforts to raise awareness on the dangers of tobacco use. Daisy tells us more.
Tobacco industry intervention remains a critical component that undermines and delays tobacco control interventions, as well as tobacco tax reform process in the Gambia. According to the Gambia Tobacco Industry Mapping Report, the country has one of the strongest tobacco control laws in Africa, with 100% smoking-free provisions that prohibits smoking in all public places. Despite these laws and regulations, the Health Ministry said there is a low compliance rate among the public.
The ministry has noted with concern the low compliance rate among the public and institutions in spite of the numerous radio, television, and community engagement programs conducted to sensitize the public on the law and regulations. In addition to the public sensitization programs, the Deputy IGP, on behalf of the IGP, also made a televised statement on the 12th November 2020, reminding and soliciting the cooperation of the public on the enforcement of the laws and regulations.
The ministry further reminded the public once again about some of the provisions of the Act.
A smoke-free environment ensures that every person has a right to smoke free. A person consuming a tobacco product, including shisha, shall ensure that he or she does not expose another person to tobacco smoke. A person shall not smoke in any public places, workplace, and public transport. A person shall not smoke in an enclosed space that is within 100 meters of a public place.
According to the Gambia Tobacco Industry Mapping Survey, tobacco companies are not as significant as they claim to be as far as the country's economy is concerned. The report proved that they often exaggerate the tax they pay and the number of staff under their payroll. Therefore, their claims are found misleading and false. Despite the progress registered, financial resources to support tobacco control efforts in the Gambia are very limited. As a result, experts say more effort is needed to strengthen Tobacco Control Act and regulations in the country. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
Health Ministry reminds Gambians of the enforcement of the Tobacco Control Act and regulations. Now, Sino Majilak Jalbag is now a sand drilling company located at the Denton Bridge along the Banjul Highway, focusing on sand mining without causing environmental disaster. In an interview with iAfrica TV, the public relations officer of the company explains their intervention as a necessity and better option to the regular forms of mining. Amindao tells us more of that in this report.
Sand mining being the extraction of sand from various land and water bodies such as the beach, inland dunes, and riverbed is a vibrant industry as no infrastructural development can go entirely behind it. So the demand for sand continues to grow as a valuable resource for construction. Few years on the line of history, the coastal line of certain places and their unique sand dunes were the only source of sand for the construction industry in the Gambia. This is known to have resulted in serious environmental problems such as land degradation, loss of agricultural lands, and biodiversity. Sino Majalak Jalbak, as a new sand dragging company, chose to take a little different path, heading towards the deep sea as the center of its mining activities. Bankamani, the public relations officer of the company, says the project was set up in response to the demand of the population for quality sand for construction without posing any environmental risk.
Sand is one of those commodities in this country that is badly needed. I mean, the construction in this country is booming. I mean, there's a huge amount of construction going on. And sadly, over the years, you know, the kind of mode of accessing this sand has not been really the best, you know, process. The environmental disaster that has unfolded is no news to nobody, so I don't want to dwell on that. But after the Faraba incident, the founders of the company felt the need to really create a company like this, where we can be able to provide these facilities in the country without the kind of disaster that has been unfolding over the years.
Even though the company has its own truck drivers to deliver the sand for the customers, buyers are allowed to use their own transport services for reduced prices.
We have our own trucks here, as you can see, and if anybody is interested in sand, they can always call us, and our agents are on standby to respond to any questions that they might have. We also have you know, truck drivers out there, or trucking companies, if you will, who are also on the standby in case somebody needs to order it through them, they can. But then we have our own trucks also. So the public is welcome to come with their own trucks, is what I meant. And we have our own trucks to also provide the sand if they need us to also fulfill that need for them.
The PRO of Sino Majalak Jalbak took some time to explain their mode of demand and supply with respect to pricings.
The size, we don't sell by truck size, even though that's how it's communicated most of the time in the country. We sell the sand by cubic meters. So $650 per cubic meter, which if you put it in a local lingo, it's terms, it's called wheel. So the 10-wheel, for instance, which is a truck that they call the 10-wheel, is supposed to be the 10 cubic meters. So, and that 10 cubic meter, basically, if you multiply the 650 by 10, that's $6,500 for the 10 cubic meter, for that 10-wheeler. And so that's excluding the transportation. So if you bring your own truck, you can get sand out of here for $6,500. During the rains here, everybody knows sand can be very expensive. But our effort is also to make sure that's stabilized and keep the prices as reasonable as possible.
In one aspect, the sand mining company is new in terms of existence and new in terms of the venture in deep sea and sand mining. It operates with about 20 employees who are mainly Gambian in different operational positions.
Sino Majalak Jalbak is a sand dragging company at the verge of providing sand to the Gambians. The company started this project 2 years ago with the aim of providing sand to the people without destroying the environment, and to stop them from crying over their land degradation due to sand mining. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
Sino Majalak pledges to mine without causing any environmental damages in the Gambia. Now, authorities in Zimbabwe are projecting a blooming maize produce in this year's farming season as farmers wrap up their activities. The government is purchasing 1 metric ton of maize at a discount of $370, leaving farmers with good option to sell off the state-owned buyers than private individuals. Authorities have also put an embargo to foreign imports, favoring the local maize farmers. Details in this report.
Deliveries of grain are rolling in thick and fast at silos across the country as farmers finish drying their bumper crop.
Where we were projecting to have received by now around 100,000, we are well ahead of that. Much ahead of that. As we speak, we are now receiving an average of 7,500 metric tons of maize per day. And as the moisture content keeps on reducing, we are expecting the average deliveries to be as high as 10,000, 12,000 metric tons per day.
The producer price for maize is the equivalent of more than $370 per ton. Now, that very good price, combined with quick turnaround in terms of payment disbursement, has seen the majority of farmers opt to fill up these silos instead of selling to private buyers. The state-run Grain Marketing Board will purchase the bulk of what has been grown.
The reason why we are purchasing 1.8 million metric tons of maize, it's because Grain Marketing Board is mandated to administer and manage the strategic grain reserve. So the 1.8 million will also include the strategic grain reserve. We are getting the necessary support from Treasury, and so far, the deliveries that have taken place, we are on top of the situation. We said we are going to be paying within 1 week. And true to our words, most farmers have been paid within 72 hours to 1 week.
Because of the plentiful stocks, grain imports have been banned.
It is no longer necessary, and it is also going to be costly if we continue to import a commodity that we have. It is bad economics to worsen our balance of payment support and end up with unnecessary foreign currency challenges.
Zimbabwe has spent about $300 million on maize imports over the last 18 months.
Zimbabwe expects highest maize yield in 2 decades. Now, with that, we is a great concern for Gambians, especially ordinary citizens, cattle traders and butchers, one another for the sudden low production of meat in the country, resulting in the hike of prices of meat. Our reporter Khadija Tuseka visited the butchers and cattle traders, and she files in this report.
The Gambia remains a predominantly agricultural country as far as employment is concerned. The livestock production sector plays a pivotal role in the country's GDP. But despite its contribution, people who are engaged in cattle trading travel to either Senegal, Mali or other countries in the sub-region to buy ruminants with only few from the Gambia. The fluctuating exchange rates are considered to be one of the challenges by the cattle traders, locally known as jewelers and the butchers. In an interview with iAfrica TV, parties blame one another for the low meat production in the country.
When the butchers come for the cattle, whatever amount you tell them, they will agree because they are not paying in cash. When they sell the cattle, they will take out their expenditures and tell you that your cattle has lost a profit of 2,000, 3,000 or even 5,000. You wouldn't be able to do anything because if you take them to court, you will add more frustration on yourself, but you won't get justice.
But for Daruba, a cattle trader, the problem is as a result of government's lack of support to the traders.
The difficulties that we are in today, for instance, when you go to Senegal, their traders work with the government. I said so because the African Development Bank and Agriculture are the ones that use their money and resources to fund their traders. When merchandise is plentiful, there is likely to be losses. But here, the government would never help the poor. Since last year, they brought money saying it is the traders' money. We have been following it with them since last year, but we are yet to receive anything. This is how they will do until the project money is finished.
In response, Yahya Jame, a butcher, explained the reason why they are being accused of not paying their debts in full.
If you give your cattle to someone for loan, you should make it in a proper way, so that if he sells it, you can get back your money. But if you are giving me the cattle for $35,000, how will I make profit? It won't be easy. Give it to me at a reasonable price. When I sell it, I will also give you back your money. That is why it is difficult. You will buy a cattle for a price and at an interest rate which is very difficult for us. We will have to take it because this is our job. If the cattle is 30,000 but you sell it at 40,000, so if a butcher agrees to take it, in most cases he would owe you some money.
Ibrahim Gates stated that the high price involved in the sales of the ruminants is sometimes responsible for their losses.
The problem bi moy price yu ñu dé jaay price yu ñu dé jaay boucher yi price yoy nonu ya du dé génné nak bi du ko dé génné.
The problem is the price in which they normally sell to the butchers is usually not the price of the cattle. So if the cattle should cost $40,000, they will rather sell it for $50,000. So if the butcher does not have that kind of money to buy the cattle, then you will have to take it as a loan. And if you do so, you won't make profit at all. So if you give the cattle owner $10,000, it will be definitely a problem. So the only thing you can do is to refund him the actual amount of the cattle without any interest. Even that, the cattle owner will still think you ate his money. This is why the butchers who have money normally buy in cash. That's what I normally do.
They call on the government to come to their aid and to help them revive their businesses. Justice delayed, they say, is justice denied. The cattle traders also urge the justice sector to speed up and consider their cases that are still pending in the courts. Karigatu Seka, iAfrica News.
Now, during his yearly tour to military posts across the country, personnel of Njongoi military posts have lamented the lack of water and electricity as a major hindrance to their daily duties to better serve the people of the surroundings. CDS Drame, however, told them that everything is determined by the availability of funds, but promised to provide water as soon as possible. More of that in this report.
The Chief of Defence Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Yakuba Drame, was received by Commanding Officer of the Nyungun Military Base, Major Jenaba Sane, and the village community elders on Monday afternoon. Both the community and the military post in Nyungun village in the North Bank region of the country cried out to the military boss on the lack of electricity and scarcity of water to perform even a basic performance. During his previous visit to the camp, the CDS says he had made numerous follow-up calls to the company to look into the matter. CDS promised both the community of Nyungun and the military camp that they will have access to water as soon as possible.
Remember, everything is determined by the availability of funds. And that is why my interaction with you, usually, I'm not tempted to make unwarranted promises. I want to tell you what I can do. If I give you my word, be assured that will be done. Today I was told about water. Last year the water was not a problem. But I can give you my word, that would be solved. Within 1 month, I don't expect you to go and fetch water. I can give you my word.
Lieutenant General CDS Drame also discourages soldiers from taking part in political rallies or campaigns as officers of the armed forces. But he was quick to recognize that the men and women in uniform have the right to vote in any election as long as they are eligible.
As a fine institution like the military, we cannot afford to take part in politics. I've said it to you the last time, and I want to repeat myself today again. I will not partake in politics. If I cannot participate in politics, what would cause you to participate in politics? Let's stay away from politics. Let's not get ourselves involved in politics.
Tree planting exercise was also conducted by the Army Chief and other officials of his entourage. This is his second tour of military camps since he was appointed as Chief of Defence Staff to steer the affairs of the Gambia Armed Forces. Reporting for iAfrica News from Farafenni, I am Mariama Cham.
We will now take a short break. Still to come, it's more local and international news. Do stay tuned.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia. It's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is the World Today newscast with me, Julian Jasware. Now to the rest of our stories. The National Assembly member for Banjul South, Honorable Tumanjai, has on Monday moved a motion to summon the Minister of Fisheries and Water Resources before lawmakers in Banjul, describing it as a matter of urgency. Tumanjai based her argument on the fact that the state of fishing in the coastline is displeasing and distasteful. Daisy files in this report.
Although the majority of Gambians depend on fish as their main source of meal, this sector continues to face challenges such as illegal and juvenile fishing in the country. This bad practice, critics say, is having a significant negative impact in terms of economic losses, leading to poor fishing in the Gambia. As a result, the Honorable Member for Banjul South, Tumanjai, moved a motion to summon the Minister of Fisheries and Water Resources to appear before the lawmakers to explain the state of fisheries in the Gambia.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move a motion under Section 53K to summon the Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Water Resources as a matter of urgency to answer to this August House as to the state of the Fisheries Department and to the recent revelations that we have seen, Madam Speaker.
According to Tumanjai, when the Minister of Fisheries and Water Resources appeared before the Parliament some time back, he misled them by giving them false information.
Seeing the distasteful state of fish lying in our coastlines. And Madam Speaker, if you recall, some time back, I asked the Minister of Fisheries the state of the coastal line and the damage that's being done. And he stood here in front of this August Assembly and blatantly gave us false information that we were following social media. Madam Speaker, it is now time to ask him to come back and tell us the real state, because this is displeasing. And Madam Speaker, we all see the skyrocketing price of fish in this country, and we've all seen how our citizens are being restricted because they cannot afford the cost of fish. Meanwhile, Madam Speaker, we have seen thousands and thousands of fish. When we woke up this morning, it is in the media and we have seen it, and it's been confirmed that this is happening. So we want the Honourable Minister, as a matter of urgency, to come and clear this.
Responding to the motion, Honorable Member for Upper Salum, Alajimbo, suggested that Tumanjai provides evidence to justify rather than merely saying it.
Again, as a parliament, I think it's quite important that if we have things like this, we need to have some evidence. Just merely saying that we have seen, I have not seen anything. So I would suggest if the honourable member can provide some documentation or some evidence about this thing, because we cannot just base a motion based on allegation or based on something we don't have. We must be based on facts.
At the end of the motion, the majority of the lawmakers agreed for the motion to be passed. Industrial fishing for local processing in the Gambia has nearly collapsed due to increased illegal fishing, poor surveillance of the fisheries resources in the high seas. However, it is said that 90% of the world's fish are either overfished or fully exploited, and $23 billion worth of seafood is stolen from the sea annually through unreported and unregulated fishing. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
A group of Chadians in Nigeria were out to protest at the front of their country's embassy, calling for an end to military rule in their country. The Chadians also marched to the French embassy to denounce what they called French interference in the affairs of their state. The son of the late president has since then taken the leadership of the country, which, however, did not go down well with the opposition. Detail in this report.
It's a rare sight in the Nigerian capital, Abuja. A group of Chadians protesting right in front of the Chad embassy, demanding that the current government of their country steps down for a democratically elected one.
What is going on in Chad is lawful, unconstitutional, is a military coup. Military junta are there, are illegitimate, they don't represent the will of Chadians, they are not for Chad, they are not for Chadians. We are denouncing the military coup. What we are demanding for a democratic system, democratic government, civilian government. Enough of militarization of our nation, enough of military rule, enough of military dictatorship.
From the Chadian embassy, the group marched to the French embassy in the city. They accused the French government of undue interference in the affairs of Chad, demanding that it stops. 37-year-old Mohamed Debi was named interim president of Chad and his late father's successor by a transitional military council back in April. The council is expected to last for 18 months, after which a democratically elected government will be ushered in. But the opposition has criticized the arrangement, saying it's a continuation of the Idris Deby political dynasty.
Chad is not kingdom. Chad is country democrat. So anything according to the law, if the vacancy of the president, neither the president for assembly as the president of the Senate, now they take over. But there is no way the Pekin take over as a general. This is a joint military. We don't need it.
The new military leader has been courting the support of regional leaders, and that appears to be paying off as regional pressure against his government is muted for now. Chad is widely considered very crucial in the fight against jihadis in the Sahel and West Africa, so regional leaders are handling the political situation in the country with extreme caution to ensure it doesn't degenerate into a regional security crisis.
Chadians call for an end to military rule in their country. Now more than 2,000 refugees from DR Congo are living in terrible situations in Uganda, leaving the UN Refugee Agency worried that the situation amid surge in COVID-19 cases in the country. The East African nation is also hosting over 1 million refugees from neighboring countries, including South Sudan, DR Congo, Somalia and Burundi, many of whom could expose to the growing number of infections. As health workers deal with the devastating COVID-19 situation, more people, including refugees, are being vaccinated, according to the United Nations Refugee Agency. Details in this report.
The UN Refugee Agency says 2,500 people have crossed the border into Uganda. The refugees are stationed at a transit camp in the western districts of Bundibujo and Toroko. Most of them are in need of temporary relief items like food, blankets and clean water. But there is fear of a possible spike in COVID-19 cases, since some have already mingled with the local population.
UNHCR and its partners are going to provide assistance in line with the SOPs, that is testing of COVID, and putting them in a situation or in quarantine where they are not crowded, observing the spacing that is required. And we would like to applaud the government of Uganda that much as we are in the midst of a pandemic, they have been kind enough to open up and allow asylum seekers to come into the country.
Uganda is already home to 1.4 million refugees, mainly from South Sudan, the DR Congo, Burundi, Somalia and Eritrea, among others. But as the country battles a more serious second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation is likely to get more complicated as refugee arrivals increase. A new report by the international aid agency World Vision shows that refugees and internally displaced persons face the highest risk of contracting COVID-19. But research carried out in 8 countries, including Uganda, reveals that refugees have been left out in the race for COVID-19 vaccines. Uganda is struggling to inoculate its own population. The country's health systems are overwhelmed by the rising cases of COVID-19, with only 800,000 people inoculated so far.
We believe refugees actually face the highest risk of facing COVID-19. So if there's any chance of getting vaccinated, it should be them actually on the top of the list. These are people who live in very confined places, in very small spaces, in their makeshift shelters where they have to pile up.
But the UN Refugee Agency says the vaccination program in Uganda includes refugees and citizens. UNHCR says some refugees in priority groups that the government announced have received the jab.
As we speak, during the first batch of vaccines that Uganda received, we had 3,905 refugees that received vaccination in the different parts of the country. But as you know, it's voluntary. But however, those who wanted to get vaccinated did receive the vaccines alongside the nationals.
Uganda has an open door policy for refugees. The country allows asylum seekers to move freely, work, go to school, and access health care services like any Ugandan citizen.
Well, that's it for the news. For more of these and others, join us on the Gambia 24 News Bulletin. Many thanks indeed for the pleasure of your company, and do have a pleasant evening. Bye-bye.